Thanks a lot, Seán, for joining us today. I understand you're Mr. Regulation, or you've been dealing a lot with interconnections between those different regulation in asset management.
Well, I guess becoming Mr. Regulation wasn't an aspiration I had in life, but looking at the responsibility that I have at the firm at Brown Brothers Harriman, where the primary focus of the business that I'm responsible for looking after is supporting global asset managers in the distribution of their capability through multiple domiciles. And it became clear, certainly 3 or 4 years ago, that we were at a period of change in regulation that was going to have a profound effect on what asset managers were able to sell to whom in what jurisdictions. So we evolved what I describe as a coalition of the willing internally to build a regulatory strategy group that looked to try to interpret these changes in a practical way. In some instances where we could influence outcomes through participation in industry groups, but primarily by understanding how items like AIFMD, like the impact for UCITS, like how VOCR might impact on the delivery of our client services, and in terms of how we would go about supporting them in that process.
What's your feeling today, in June 2012, AIFMD, there's still a lot of things we're expecting in July. What is your feeling? Do you feel that your clients are ready already, or they're just reacting whenever there's some emergency just to look at their product side? Has it been anticipated that regulation could have so much impact on their business models?
Well, I think that funnily enough, I think this industry abhors abstraction, and when you have a set of uncertainties, as you do in what the actual outcome of FATCA is going to be, or what the precise level 2 implementation measures are going to be in AIFMD, it's very difficult to build a plan around that, to begin to understand how you might go about executing. But all you have is a shape of a number of probabilities. And our observation is that there are a number of managers who are really beginning to think through what the product impact is going to be, what the distribution impact is going to be, of them being able to be more prepared and sooner prepared than some of their competitors in shaping product to come. And we found that those conversations around the abstract elements have been actually quite useful in recognizing that there needs to be a different form of partnership between in the chain of delegation, and that to some degree the role that we play in facilitating the operational delivery of that is going to have a more important and different role than it had previously, because the level of permissions in terms of the asset management strategies that can be delivered in a regulatory framework are changing, and changing in not in a profound way, but in a way that requires differentiation in the way the models are working.
So would you say that bigger organizations are better prepared, or not automatically?
Not axiomatically, but observation is that an organization that has the resource to think about this in the abstract is obviously going to have a different level of preparedness than an organization in the current environment, which has a very focused attention on cost. Having people thinking about abstract ideas is an expensive luxury.
Definitely. Tell us a bit more about where you see the evolution of UCITS. There's a lot of been said on UCITS becoming the vehicle across Europe, but even now Asia as well, Latin America. Where do you see UCITS moving?
I've often reused the phrase to say that this industry is governed to a certain degree by the gods of small things, that the small incremental rules become important in facilitating assets that you can put into a UCITS framework, or markets in which you can distribute that product. UCITS, in my mind, still remains the best solution to globalization. I think that the Commission and the authorities in Europe really need to remember that this has been one of the most effective financial exports that we've had, but that the tolerance of investors globally to pay the level of cost and transparency that they're building into this product in the current iteration may not be sustainable for the amount of returns that are available in the current environment. And one of the things that I would fear is that there would be a a bifurcation in the marketplace between European domicile distribution, which will lose some of the benefits of scale, and product delivery using a different mechanism has yet to be determined for other markets like in Asia or in Latin America. And that fate that we've had in UCITS as being the most effective globalization of asset management capability that we've seen over the last 20 years, I won't say is shaken, but certainly that there are elements in the new rulemaking that cause us a little degree of concern about that.
And how do you see the directive, AFM directive, interacting with the UCITS?
Well, obviously it's being used as a template for a new set of UCITS regulation. And there's a degree of concern about the nature of how that's coming to the fore, particularly in what we're currently concerned about, rules about delegation, our own bailiwick or concern being depository liability standards and the appropriate positioning of a depository in the investment process. But I mean, all of these things are workable. I think that notwithstanding some of the gloom and doom, we all have to get up in the morning and think about what we're going to do next. It's clearly going to be a very challenging period. But the importance of having a partner who's going to be able to thrash this out from an ideas perspective and to understand where the possibilities are. Our view is that we've moved beyond the bang the table, this can't really be happening to us stage. I must recognise that the long-term self-interest of the industry is having effective product that's acceptable in as many markets as possible from a regulatory perspective, and that it's in the best interest of industry to come about the idea of being able to ensure they can deliver on that.
Definitely. So if I'm a US fund manager and I'm thinking of entering the European market, what's perspective? You think UCITS is probably, if I can convert my strategies into UCITS, you think that's still a high recommendation?
Yes, and certainly we've built a career around delivering US asset management capabilities in the regulated framework in Europe, and that diversification of revenue streams becomes increasingly important. If you look at the US marketplace, it is at a different stage of development in Europe. And while we are somewhat pessimistic in my observation in Europe, or more pessimistic than the numbers suggest we are, I'm not suggesting this is a moment for optimism, but maybe perhaps not for the level of pessimism that we're experiencing, is that there's still possibilities. There's still product being bought, there's still product being sold, and this is to ignore it, I think, is at your peril.
Right. So many thanks again for sharing with us this very interesting insight. As you said, it's a very challenging time, but hopefully with the right advisors, you can develop good market opportunities.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.